Okay, continuing on our Italian theme, although I think the Vatican is completely separate, even though it is in Italy. Today is July 6, 2017. If you have not already heard about the kind of busting in, taking down in the Vatican, this drug, sex, orgy thing, then you've been living under a rock, which is fine because we're happy to bring it to you first and foremost. However, this blew my stinking mind. Go ahead, Leah.
In a sordid new sex scandal, Vatican police raided the apartment of a 50-year-old priest breaking up a gay orgy fueled by
drugs and alcohol in the Vatican. So actually, this really shouldn't come as a surprise.
We've been hearing a lot about pedophilia in...
We've got George Pell, the Cardinal in Australia.
But what I mean is those are the things that are coming out. We've been hearing for years about these underlying things, and like to have it actually out and, well...
It does kind of seem unbelievable.
Last week's Blitz, Monsieur Luigi Capozzi, assistant to Cardinal Francesco Coccopalmerio of the Pontifical Council of Legislative Texts, was arrested by the Vatican gendarmerie and sent briefly to a Roman clinic for drug detox.
Oh my gosh.
The priest, a native of Salerno, is currently on retreat at an unspecified convent in Italy. He's on retreat.
Oh my gosh. Can you say they say them like in Italian. Capozzi. Capozzi's
Why don't you
apartment.
read?
No, go ahead. No.
Capozzi's apartment, where the raid took place, is in a palace of San Eusfosio within the Vatican City, where a number of high-ranking prelates have lived, including then Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger before being elected Pope. Theories abound regarding who tipped off the police concerning this sordid affair, but reports suggest that Capozzi had made a number of enemies. According to local media, the apartment where Capozzi lived, the scene of the raid, was never supposed to be assigned to a mere secretary of a department head, but was reserved for a higher-level prelates of the Roman Curia. Discontent had been brewing as well because Capozzi had somehow come into possession of a car with the license plate of the Holy See, another privilege reserved for prelates. This car would also allow its owner to transport drugs without being stopped by the Italian police, a fact employed in reconstructing possible scenarios behind last week's event.
That's really important.
We're going to turn you in. It doesn't really matter to us whether you're doing all this stuff, but you took like the good apartment and you took the good car, and so we're turning you in. That's how we roll around here, okay? The priest is considered an ardent supporter of Pope Francis, and according to his LinkedIn account, is an expert in canon law and dogmatic.
LinkedIn account. These priests have LinkedIn accounts.
Dogmatic theology. Well, I'm going to tell you that gay orgies is not good dogmatic theology. Reports of a gay lobby within the Vatican have circulated for years. Not long after his election, Pope Francis acknowledged the existence of a gay lobby, suggesting he would try to root it out.
Unsuccessfully.
In the Curia, there are holy people. It's true, there are holy people, Francis said in June 2013. But there is also a current corruption. This as well. It's true. People talk about a gay lobby. It is true. It exists, and we will have to see what we can do about it. Well, we're just going to embrace it. For his part, Pope Benedict XVI revealed in his 2016 memoirs titled Last Testament that a gay lobby within the Vatican had tried to influence his decisions, but that he thought he had managed to break up this power group.
You can't just break it up, okay? These people have to be turned in.
Okay, so in October 2015, a homosexual priest working undercover in the Vatican's doctrinal office organized a media blitz in which he publicly outed himself just a day before an international Vatican synod on marriage and family was scheduled to begin. It goes on to talk about, but I want to, you know, what gay people do within the church is one thing, but ministers, they're not supposed to be sinning, okay? And then they go and tell other people not to sin, but then they're sinning. It's horribly hypocritical, but it goes much deeper than that. It's much deeper than what you would say consensual homosexual relationships. It goes to pedophilia, and that's what we're going to hit
now the Vatican. You have
to start this over here.
And then nothing else after it. I mean, this is beyond the Twilight Zone. What is causing this massive move against pedophile rings that even MSM admits may bring down the Catholic Church?
A few weeks ago, I received a phone call by a professor, a very respected professor in economy at one of the most prestigious Italian universities, and his name is Antonio Maria Rinaldi. He called me and he said, Leo, something big is about to happen. They're really closing in on the pedophile network, and Donald J. Trump is really doing what he said he would do. So this is thanks to Donald J. Trump that we have this big change. But at the same time, you see, in the US, you have the possibility of at least saying your opinion, of stating your opinion thanks to InfoWars, while instead here in Europe, we are completely silenced.
Jesus, it scared me. I wasn't ready for that.
Leo Zagami. I remember Leo Zagami.
I thought our house was caving in.
10 years ago saying that Pope Francis, head of the Jesuits, would end up being the Pope. And they never had a Jesuit, much less a head of the Jesuits, as the Pope. I'm not a Catholic, but I knew that was, basically against the rules. And then I've read some of his books and writings long before it came out in the news that they were using sex operatives to basically compromise the Catholic Church and cause a takeover. And then, sure enough, a few years ago, when Ratzinger had to step down and was sent to Gandalf Castle, I'm not kidding, folks, that's the name of the castle he was sent to. That's not from Lord of the Rings.
I love he has to.
There was one in Guardian that they'd use blackmail to get Francis in. But then when I traveled to Rome about a year and a half ago and met with Zagami there outside the Vatican, we also went inside, he said, listen, we're going to bring down this Pope. It's all coming out very, very soon. And just so much of what he said has turned out to be accurate. Again, when I first read his stuff 10 years ago, I thought this is just preposterous. And now, last week, Cardinal sex abuse charges raise questions about Pope's record. Reportedly, dozens and dozens of young boys raped and groomed over 40 years by his right-hand man, his confidant. So this is amazing.
So not just Pell, but in that whole area where Pell was at, it was raping of boys and girls in the most violent, vile ways. And there were other priests that in this network that have already been prosecuted. And
amazing.
You're dying. It's fine.
So I want to bring Leo Zagami up to talk about this and internally, because he lives right there in Rome. His family's been in government. He's been involved. Has a lot of amazing contacts. Living right there in Rome, talking to the Vatican police and more, predicting this would happen. What does this signify? What internal war does this show? Is this part of the larger movement? I know intelligence agencies, the good factions in Europe, here, you name it, have been saying they're going after the pedo rings, that Trump has signified and signaled this. Now we see busts in the UK. We see record bust here. We're seeing it in Italy. We're seeing it all over. Leo, you talked about this when I was in Rome. I guess it was about 2 years ago now. Time flies. You said, get ready. This is going to start happening. The good guys are going to strike back. And now it's happening, or is this part of something else?
No, it's happening, Alex. Hello, first of all, to you and your listeners and your viewers. Well, it's happening, and it's happening clearly in front of the whole world with George Pell, but it's also an internal conflict. A few days before George Pell got booted out of the Vatican, we had basically the police breaking inside the palace of the Holy Office, the ex-Inquisition, now known as the Congregation for the Matters of Faith, basically the headquarters of the most Holy Office in the Vatican. The police broke in and found a gay orgy, and they were using cocaine, and they basically had to arrest the secretary of a very prominent cardinal who himself was waging war against Cardinal Pell. So there is also an internal war here.
Little hypocrisy
there. Nobody wanted to show the face of this priest, but I wanted to show it to your viewers. It's called Monsignor Luigi Capozzi, and only very few media, I think only RT probably just mentioned the name of Capozzi's boss, this Cardinal Coccopalmerio, who started this internal conflict because Coccopalmerio...
Is it like the Italian sexual mafia in the Vatican?
And his secretary, who was found in this gay orgy, they are strong supporters of Pope Francis. So this is really becoming an incredible scandal. And once Cardinal Pell goes back in Australia, is now I think already back in Australia, the actual scandal starts to unfold for the Anglo-Saxon media, because Cardinal Pell is responsible for many decades of secret plan devised by the Vatican to give the less possible money to the victims of pedophilia and monopolize them.
He is in charge of the Vatican's finances. I think he's number 3 to the Pope. He was brought in to do the finances, and what he just said was
he said money, but he meant money.
He was he is brought in to try to kind of do the whole sexual victim thing, and to give them the least amount of money possible, because he goes on to say that if they were
to manipulate them, but he said manipulate them, so it's kind of hard to understand what he was saying.
So if they were to actually pay out what they should be given, the Vatican would go bankrupt.
That's right. Let's be clear. Cardinal Pell and, of course, Pope Francis have been involved quarterbacking the cover-up of the sex crimes, but because they were in charge of covering it up, that gave them the power to then blackmail the rest of the Vatican and put themselves into power. Was this a
the last Italian priest, I think, major priest to be convicted of pedophilia, Pope Francis was there with him the whole time, holding his hand. And then he asked the victims to give him mercy. He needed mercy.
No, he needs to have his thing.
He has you an operation from the beginning to bring in the pedophile rings, or who is the main driver of this? And give us who the different players are, Leo, because no one's laid out this intrigue like you have.
Well, Cardinal Pell was called in the Vatican at the end of 2013 to preside over a totally new office that will take care of the economy of the Vatican. You can understand that this must be probably the most important office in the whole of the Vatican.
This could be one of the most important offices in the world. We know the Vatican wealth is just incalculable.
And he was made a member of the C9 group, which is a group of 9 cardinals. And 3 of these cardinals have been heavily criticized for having protected in the past pedophilia, including Cardinal Pell. So many people were actually astonished of seeing in February 2014 Cardinal Pell arriving in Rome. And he didn't really hide in front of the media or in front of the other people in the Vatican. He started immediately acting with a lavish lifestyle that, of course, brought a lot of criticism towards Pope Francis, who wants to be this very conservative Pope who doesn't spend much money and is living in a modest surrounding. While instead, George Pell was spending money, was making all kinds of things happening that were putting really in bad light Pope Francis. But he was not taking care of any of this criticism. He put him there, and he basically became, after the Secretary of State, the number 3 in the Vatican. So this is the first time in history, Alex, that such a high-ranking officer, let's say, or minister of this Vatican is put in front of a trial. There is actually no deal between Australia and the Vatican, so Cardinal Pell could have stayed in the Vatican without being arrested. But in the end, I guess the situation forced him out, because there's also an internal war now within the Vatican, and this war involves both the economic side of the Vatican, the political side, and of course the sexual scandals with the drugs. Now, we know very well about this letter that was sent by 4 cardinals, including a friend and supporter of Steve Bannon, who is Cardinal Burke. Cardinal Burke and these other 4 cardinals ended up more and more isolated. And as you know, he was supervising the Knights of Malta as a spiritual advisor, but instead the Pope immediately sent him away in a remote island investigating some case of pedophilia, but just to get him out of Rome, because Cardinal Burke, for him, is like seeing Donald Trump. So, I mean...
so let me just stop you for a moment. Clearly, this is unraveling, and I know you have law enforcement sources because we were there. We met with some of them with you, obviously, when I came and visited with you. And you've been saying this is all coming. So explain to us like we're 4 years old, because I know you live there, you're an expert, so you understand it, and you're a reporter that's been exposing this. Who are the players exactly? What does this massive fissure know? What does this tell us? Because clearly they're saying this is the highest level person ever to get indicted. They're saying it could be hundreds of children, grooming young boys, supplying them.
Massive
If he is at the top, right, there are hundreds, if not like thousands, underneath of him.
I mean, how big is this? Was this an internal fight that busted him, or was this the Liberty Movement worldwide going after him? What's happening?
This is a worldwide thing, Alex, and I can prove it for your viewers today, because the first person Cardinal Pell brought in Rome with him was Lord Christopher Patten. And Lord Christopher Patten was responsible for defending the BBC pedophilia rings between 2011 and 2014.
The BBC pedophilia rings.
The first person that Pell brought in was the guy responsible for defending the BBC pedophilia rings.
Yep.
He was in charge of the trust of the BBC. So, Christopher Patten, who defends the pedophiles in England, arrives with George Pell in Rome.
Stay there.
How would you even be friends with somebody like that?
Leo Zagami.
So you guys are going to have to watch the whole thing. I watched it, Mom watched it, you watched it, we watched more of it yesterday. The guy was just incredibly spot on. And under Trump, pedophile rings are being busted, sex trafficking rings are being busted. Things are coming to the forefront. We're winning.
We're winning.
I'm just
when
really,
pedophiles
really
and the pedophile rings all over the world start being shut down, I count that as definitely winning.
Right.
Huge wins.
So these scandals, I love that they're coming to the surface. Finally, the one thing we always say when these things, we know that there are child sex abuse victims, they get shut up. Like when I read about Pell and when I began to read the victims' accounts of what happened to them, and then to Pell's senior above him, and he was actually convicted of pedophilia. When I read about the victims' accounts, it'll turn your stomach, it'll make you sick. So I want this stuff to come out. We want it to come out. It's got to come out. So
yes, it's like a zit. It has to be popped.
Yes.
All right, you guys. This is Leah Michelle signing off for Resistance Chicks, where it's not a conspiracy theory. If it's the truth, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Mass Faith 3 and Resistance Chicks. Ring that bell for notifications. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, VidMe. Sydney just hurled. See, that's what happens when she barks and you throw her treats constantly to shut her up. And I don't know what she has gotten into besides eating my bread, my food, and now she's, I'm not cleaning that up.
Candace?
It's his dog.
Okay, bye.
Bye, guys.
I was cold.